Hi, I'm Neil O'Reilly from O'Reilly Law. I represent clients throughout New York and New Jersey, and this is the second in a three-part educational video series which I'm putting together in response to a number of questions I've gotten from friends and family and potential clients about what are the essential legal documents that they would need to make sure that all their matters could be taken care of. Today is March 16th of 2020. I've been getting a lot of these questions over the past little less than since last Thursday, so about the last 4 or 5 days. We have the coronavirus happening right now, and since some of the phone calls I've had where people were a little nervous, I'm hoping that this video series will help people take one more thing off their plate, one less thing to worry about. So the first video we talked about powers of attorney. This video we're going to talk about healthcare proxies and living wills. Again, this particular video is not state specific. So at the end of this video, you won't know how many witnesses you need for your document. You won't know if you need it notarized or not. I really just want this to be informational for everyone generally. I don't want to run through every state. And as a matter of fact, it really wouldn't be appropriate. I'm only licensed in New York and New Jersey. So I don't want this to be limited to just people from New York and New Jersey. My hope is that at the end of this series, you'll know what the essential documents are, what they do, why you need them, and also certain pitfalls you might want to avoid. I've been practicing after I left the DA's office. I've been practicing in this field now for about 17 years. And these are some of the questions which come up very frequently from my clients, different things that they wonder if they can do. And also, I've dealt with a lot of litigation in this area, and these are some of the topics which have come up which create confusion and things that we want to avoid. So, your healthcare proxy. So this is a document which operates if you are unable to make your own medical decisions, you nominate a healthcare agent to make your decisions. So the first thing to note is, in the prior video we talked about a power of attorney and how that operated immediately upon it being executed unless it was a springing power of attorney. Your healthcare proxy only operates if you can't make your own medical decisions. So your treating physician will know if that's in fact the case, and then they will ask if there's a healthcare agent, someone to make decisions for you. If the document isn't present, they won't wait for it. They'll take the actions that they have to take. So let's first talk about your agent, and then we'll talk about how do we make sure that this document gets into the proper hands to make sure that your agent is part of the procedure, part of the process, and will make decisions in your best interest. So the first thing is your agent. Again, if we have a couple coming in, generally they'll be each other's primary healthcare agent, and then there'll be at least one successor agent. So we'll have a secondary agent and then sometimes a third or a fourth agent. So the first thing is one agent at a time. A lot of times if a couple comes in and they have children, they'll say, well, we want to have both or all of our children be the healthcare agents. This is not a good idea. First of all, it slows down the process. Second of all, the doctor really wants to have one point person. The doctor is not, as important as your health is, it's not the only matter. They can't be asked to deal with so many different people and to wait for so many different people to show up to give an answer. The other thing that may happen is if we have multiple agents, they may get a conflicting answer, in which case now, what does the doctor do? Has agent A saying, take an action, and agent B saying, don't dare take that action. So we don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to have one agent. Now, it may be that if you have children, some of your children may be offended that they're not the agent who's picked. You have to come up with a reason why you picked one. So the first thing to remember is you have an attorney advising you that it's probably best to just have one, because we don't want to have a problem of there being a deadlocked vote. So whatever the reason is, I picked the oldest. I picked the one who lives closest to me. If one of your children is in the medical profession, I went by alphabetical order. I went height. Whatever it is, give an objective reason and stick with it. Whatever your reason is, if it's simply you just want to make it so that everyone understands, I can only have one agent. It's really important. If you have two, it can create problems. It has created problems. When you fill out your healthcare proxy, you don't only want to put the name of the healthcare agent, put their address and put their cell phone number, or the number that you know you can reach them at all times. And it's not about you reaching them. It's if a doctor is given this healthcare proxy, and they need a decision quickly, we want them to be able to look at the healthcare proxy, have someone contact you immediately. We need you to be reachable at all times. Put it in for every agent and every backup agent. Put it in for everyone. Name, address, phone number. Even if the address changes, you can update it if you need to, but the address isn't as important. That's kind of important if we're doing an internet search. And we all know if we're going to do an internet search for a person, prior addresses come up. So you don't have to worry if the address changes. Yes, update it if possible. But if you don't, it's not fatal to the healthcare proxy. The next thing is, on the power of attorney, I had suggested that if we have a couple and they have minor children, that they should pick the same attorney in fact, so that we have one person handling all of the finances, all of the administrative details, because for a couple there's going to be a lot of overlap. We don't want people working at cross purposes with each other. However, for a healthcare proxy, we don't have that rule, because what will happen oftentimes is someone will come in, and if there are adult children, you can pick adult children. That makes it easier. However, if we have minor children or no children, one person will say, I'd like my brother, I'd like my mother. That's great. The other person will say, well, my mother-in-law is a terrific person, but I don't want her to make my decisions. And they don't have to. You can have different healthcare agents. So one can have a parent, and the other can have a sibling or a friend, whatever. It doesn't need to be the same agent. So don't let that hold up the process. You can each pick whoever you want. It doesn't matter who the other person picks as their backup, because if we're going to the backup, presumably that means each person in the couple is incapable of making the decision at that point. The next thing is, I didn't mention this for the power of attorney, but it also holds for the power of attorney. You can have as many originals as you want. For a will, there's only one original. That's it. You can't have multiples. Only one counts. But for the power of attorney and the healthcare proxy and the living will, you can have multiple originals. Now, here's why we want multiple originals, particularly with the healthcare proxy. If we keep the healthcare proxy and the living will together, if we have, sometimes if I have clients who aren't doing very well and we expect medical intervention shortly, I would tell them, take one, put it in a file, put it, a file folder or an envelope, put it right by the front door and mark it, healthcare proxy, living will, so that if someone comes, they would look at the door and they would see it, and if it's EMS, they might take it with them. Or if it's someone who takes you to the doctor, they would know, okay, we all know that we don't have to search for this document. We know exactly where it is. It's hanging right next to the front door. Make sure that the healthcare agents have it, both the primary and the secondary, or even if there's a third or a fourth, make sure every person has a copy of that healthcare proxy. You might also want to put one on file with your primary care physician, because if something happens to you, besides everyone else who has a copy, your primary care physician would also speak with if there's a different specialist doctor treating you, they would be in contact with that doctor to let them know about your treatment, and then they would also give them a copy of the healthcare proxy and the living will. So that's the main thing about the healthcare proxy is, it's great to have one, because if you don't have someone making decisions for you, then the doctors have to make the decision, and they might make decisions which are more intrusive than you want. They may take, if there's an operation or a procedure which is available that your family knows you definitely do not want, they may say that without having a healthcare agent available, the hospital would have to give you that procedure perhaps. So that's why you want to have your healthcare agent making decisions. This is someone who presumably knows your wishes, knows what you want, knows what you don't want, and they would make the decisions that you would hopefully make. So that's the other part of this healthcare proxy is talk with whoever you appoint your agent, make sure they know what your wishes are. Your next document is your living will. Now, this is a document. It states your intention should you require extraordinary medical care that may only prolong life but will not restore the person to their regular quality of life. So a lot of times it's referred to as an end-of-life document. What type of intervention do you want? If you're at a point where the procedure would not necessarily restore you, but it would simply be keeping you alive. So for my healthcare, for my living will, there are 3 triggers. for the living will to become operational. So the first thing to note is this isn't someone in your family making the decision of when to take certain actions. You make the decision. So for the next 3 triggers that you're going to hear, it's decided by 2 doctors. So once 2 doctors say, so the first one is, if I'm diagnosed as having an incurable and irreversible terminal condition as determined by 2 physicians. So then if you say, I don't want any intervention except for, say, for what a number of my clients say is, I don't want any intervention except for pain medication to relieve pain. And I don't want to receive any feeding through a feeding tube. So that's not a decision made by your healthcare agent. So that should give some peace of mind to your healthcare agent. They're not being asked to make the decision to turn off a respirator or to withhold nutrition or CPR. They would just be told, the physicians say that you have a terminal and an irreversible condition, therefore follow the wishes in the living will. That's one of the main things we want to do is we want your family and friends to be able to be present to help you and to comfort you, but we don't really want them to be agonizing or feeling guilty if they're making a decision to eliminate certain treatments. So that's the whole point of this is you've made the decision. It's backed up by 2 doctors that you're at a trigger point. So now let's either give the treatment you want or withhold the treatments that you want and withheld. So the first is you have an incurable and irreversible condition. The second is if I'm diagnosed as being permanently unconscious or in a persistent vegetative state as determined by 2 physicians. And the third is if I am diagnosed as having an incurable and irreversible condition as determined by 2 physicians, which is, strike that, incurable and irreversible condition, which is not terminal, but which causes me to experience severe and progressive physical or mental deterioration and loss of capacities I value, so that the burden of continued life with treatment are greater than the benefits. So this would be a situation where someone were in so much pain that they don't want to continue in that capacity. So what happens then? If we have one of those 3 triggers as determined by 2 physicians, one of whom can be your treating physician, these are some of the choices. There are innumerable number of choices. You can look online, but this is the format which I use for my clients. And this is if they're deciding to withdraw all treatment except for pain medication. In the circumstances described, A, artificially provided fluids and nutrition, such as by feeding tube or intravenous infusion, should be withheld or withdrawn. B, if I should suffer cardiac or respiratory arrest, cardiopulmonary resuscitation should not be provided. And C, any other medicine or medical procedures that may be available to prolong my life should not be used, except that all available pain medication to relieve my discomfort should be administered. That's what a living will is. So it doesn't have to be that you withdraw. I also have clients who say, I want certain matters, I want certain treatments given, I don't want other treatments given. And if you're someone, even if you're thinking to yourself, well, I want everything, but I don't need, therefore I don't need a living will. If you're already going to a lawyer, get a living will that simply states that. Your wishes should be known. You don't want to leave this to guess. This is an extremely important time. As I stated, if you are in a condition like this, what we want is for your family to be able to concentrate on being with you. Similarly, if you're dealing with a family member, you want to be present with them. You don't want to have to agonize about what did they want. So not only should you have a living will, talk to your family about what you want. And this is a prime example of why I wanted to do this video series. This is the document that overwhelms people when they come in to see me. This is always the document where you can kind of sense they're checking out a little bit, they're overwhelmed with information, this is something they hadn't contemplated. So take the time, now that we've talked about it, watch this video a number of times if you need to. Think about what you want and make sure that you memorialize it. Excuse me, my throat's a little dry. So if you found this helpful, hopefully share it with your family and friends. If you do like it, like the video and subscribe. It does help it become recommended to other people, which is very helpful. I'm hoping that this is just information which, like I stated, could be overwhelming the first time, but the more someone thinks about it, the less overwhelming it will be, which is important. We want these documents to be something which is generally accepted and which is something which people can just take care of and then put it behind them. Once it's executed, you can put this behind you and you don't have to worry about it again. So that's really my hope here. My hope here is that with this information, you'll get some peace of mind and be able to move forward. If you have any questions, post them below or contact me through my contact information below. I'm always available to help out with this. Have a great day, and really thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Bye-bye.